Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. God, it feels like it's been an eternity. But let me just check my quests and see what the hell we were doing. I think my next batch of quests is to climb down the Aos Tower. I need propellers, the goggles, the small eggs from tweeters. Oh God. And I have to kill pink propellies and tweeters. Yeah, so that's where we're gonna go next. Hope everybody's had a good feel like it's been about a week or so. I ended up skipping Saturday's stream. Was it Saturday's stream? Yeah, because I had some last minute errands come up. This is an early one? Yeah, Ben. I'm actually just doing an early short stream today. Just wanted to try to catch up and hang out with y'all. I'm going to be going out of town again for the Houston Regional. And I didn't stream my full schedule last week. I was saying that one of the streams I had to skip because I had a last minute errand come up. You know, it is what it is. I definitely feel bad for, other content creators that sort of have to stream every day, 8 hours a day, even if they don't feel like it. Gosh, I remember back in the height of Legends of Runeterra when we had a couple of the bigger streamers like Aikedo, and like Majin Bay and stuff who would be streaming games at like really high master tier. And when the meta was really dog shit. Cuz sometimes like there would be decks that were really toxic but you wouldn't really see it lower elos, or if you did, people weren't playing them super well, so it was kind of chill. You could close your eyes, you could squint a little bit and pretend that the meta was okay. And at really high levels, the game would be unplayable. And I would see sometimes they'd be playing those same toxic decks. You know what I mean? Because if you're playing competitively, you're sort of forced to go tit for tat with some of these big decks. And Runeterra, we've discussed it at length. Runeterra always had like a really bad bottlenecking problem where sometimes when a deck gets really popular, it just means that the deck that beats it can become more popular in turn. Oh yeah, we have to do the 10 roly-poly quests too. So you can't just skip your way down the tower. We actually have to visit every floor to find the 10 roly-polies. But anyway, you know what I mean? You'd have to hope that the counter idea that you came up with would be good. And on a mixed best of one single ladder environment, that sort of counterplay didn't really exist. You know what I mean? It'd be good for tournaments because we would play like conquest format with a ban and you could sort of force a better matchup. But it was always this very feast or famine, it felt like, gameplay environment. And I think just, best of one ranked ladder in a card game kind of results in that regardless. But I got to remember to not die. Like, the enemies around here actually hit really hard. I'm just kind of skipping my way down the tower, skip to Maloo. So yeah, you'd be like, it was one of those, if you can't beat them, join them. Lost Soldier. Wait, what quest are you again? Oh yeah, I gotta clear out the propellers and the goggles. So that's just kind of how it was. You had to just tank the bad meta game. Ooh, they got red-tailed hawks in Ludibrium. You hear that? Oh my god, that's annoying. Okay, so these do drop propellers. These are the right enemies. This is annoying when you're outside like this, because the item drops from the monsters appear behind this brick wall. This is a foreground sin. It's, I guess, a little iconic because MapleStory is based around older games, but I've always disliked it when games do this. Like, fighting flying enemies in MapleStory is already annoying, but the fact that you can't really see what they drop, you just have to mash. It doesn't really matter. It's just, it's subtly annoying to me. Hollow Knight loves to do this shit. Oh my god, that was an era when I played Hollow Knight on stream. I was kind of just in my let's play some difficult games era. You know what I'm talking about? Like, I streamed a bunch of, like, harder titles. And what can I even drop? Orbis Rock Scrolls use your etc. slot and not your use slot? That's gross. I didn't even notice that. But the environment artists cooked a little too hard in Hollow Knight, where they had a bunch of stuff obscuring your vision in certain maps. It makes it feel very claustrophobic and moody, and it's got that, like, storybook lair Disney feel. I appreciated as, you know, from an artistic point of view, but from a gameplay point of view, it was such a fucking annoying sin. Because imagine if there was, like, an enemy that was crawling on the ground on the platform here, and it was, like, behind this little blue wall and it was being obscured. That's the kind of stupid shit that Hollow Knight would do to you in a couple areas. It wasn't major, but it happened enough that it really stuck with me how annoying it was to deal with. Because it just kind of breaks your flow. Because Hollow Knight is one of those, like, it's a Souls. If we're being for real, like, Hollow Knight came out around that early Souls era, where having a cryptic story, really high difficulty kind of vibe was really what the players wanted at the time. And so for a game that touts itself as yeah, you've got to pay attention, you've got to keep your wits about you, you've got to fight, you've got to be skilled, to kind of cheese you with environment obscuring enemies, it felt real bad. I can't remember from Hollow Knight, but I don't think there's any of that in Silksong. They definitely they must have learned their lesson. The only, like, I saw the discourse from Silksong when that game was coming out. When that game did come out, there was a lot of discourse about how the runbacks to bosses were really fucking annoying. They would put a save point really, really far away from a boss, and people hated losing to the boss and having to, like, run the gauntlet to get back to the boss. And there's a lot of, and there are a few times in, like, Dark Souls and stuff that do that as well. And it's just like, yeah, you died, and it's just how it is. It's annoying, but it gives you time to maybe take a deep breath and reset, ironically, rather than tilting and fighting the boss over and over and over again and just hitting your head against a brick wall. And from what I understand, is there was not enough fast travel points, or that, like, the fast travel was kind of weirdly placed so that you would go through some really annoying area, and then after you've kind of beaten this annoying area, then you would unlock the fast travel point to kind of shortcut through the area. And it would be like, wow, this is just a lot of weird pacing, I guess you could call it. But again, this is all hearsay on my point. I wasn't one of the Silksong clown makeup players where I was really hyped for the game. I didn't care. I played Hollow Knight. It was definitely good for what it was. I just wasn't a Giga fan. But I'm not like an abject hater. I'm just like, it's whatever. There were some rough runbacks in Silksong. The swamp one was probably the most notorious because the runback was actually difficult and there wasn't really a recovery. Oh, man. And, it's an old school, like, hard video game tradition almost. What the hell? Look, they're hovering outside of my spell range. Annoying. Like, I'm trying to think. Like, I remember off the top of my head, like, a couple RPGs do that, where they'll make you fight, like, 2 or 3 bosses in a row. You get, like, the RPG boss rush, and then you die, and then you have to go all the way back to starting the boss fight gauntlet again. There's a fight specifically in Legend of Dragoon where the enemy has a form change and you don't realize it at first, so you like use all of your really strong abilities on the first form, which is just a debate. So then when he form changes, you get bodied. So you actually have to die, and then oh, I have to save all my big guns for after the form change. I like Silksong through mainly the platforming rocked. Serious movement in that game made all the walking around super fun. I saw some post that was kind of talking about how Silksong is a Catholic Metroidvania. And that Hollow Knight is a Protestant Metroidvania. And that's why so many people that liked Hollow Knight didn't like Silksong, because they weren't prepared for a Catholic Metroidvania. It was some like really hilariously specific subdivision of the genres. And I was kind of laughing at how correct it was. Sometimes, we describe things based on vibes, but the vibes are so correct. And I was like, yeah, I totally get it. Because what Silksong was like, Hollow Knight is much more of a modern Metroidvania, quote unquote modern, where that era of indie Metroidvanias were more modernized. The movement systems were a little bit, when I say sloppy, I mean it in an endearing way, right? Where things are a little looser because it gives you some granularity. You know what I mean? A lot of Metroidvanias at the time, were based around very specific grid-based movement. And Hollow Knight was less of that, if that makes sense at all, right? It's not sloppy. I felt like it had some intentional give to it so that you could be clinical. The way that like I want to be the guy's movement is sloppy, but it's sloppy as a negative connotation, but my brain is blanking on the right word I want to use for it, just having a slightly bit more of a free form feel to it, I think is what I mean to say. So that you can be really granular with it. Stuff like I Want to Be the Guy, stuff like Ultimate Chicken Horse, where it's meant for precision. And I feel like Celeste has that in between where it's very granular, precise movement, but it has a lot of feel good give, and there's like coyote time in there to make it feel good to operate and find these really precision ones. And Hollow Knight has that sort of loose air movement that gives you that really precise like ability to jump around enemies, if that makes sense. And it doesn't mesh as well, I think, with some of the map design. Yeah, you stop on a dime. And from what I understand, Silksong is basically a direct like port of Symphony of the Night's movement, isn't it? Or at least they took a little bit more of the systems there. Silksong is like that, but it adds momentum through attack combos, which makes it feel more acrobatic. Oh, yeah, that's a really good point as well. Especially for the character, you know, Hornet. Silksong is all about diagonals. That's interesting. That's definitely interesting. To analyze the design in that way, to say, yes, this, oh god, uh-oh. Oh, how troll would it be to fall all the way down and miss this roly-poly? Anyway. That's cool. To analyze the movement. The way that, you know, Castlevania has very horizontal, or Ghosts and Goblins has very horizontal combat. And so then having like diagonal combat is very on it. Honestly, Castlevania starts horizontal, but the sub weapons are such an integral part of your kit and your ability to solve encounters. Because Castlevania, like I'm talking about like the first one, the encounters are all really, really scripted. And so you have to solve the encounters, and your sub weapon gives you a lot of parabolic attack patterns that let you solve those encounters. So you could argue that Castlevania at its core is a very diagonal game too. It's in same thing. And again, these really old, super difficult NES games, Mega Man, Ghosts and Goblins, where being attacked from a diagonal is very hard to deal with. And that's why stuff like the spiders that jump at you in old video games or birds that swoop at you are just so deadly. Because they hit you from angles that your character is literally not built to handle. I think that immediately got people was how the very linear pogo was replaced with a diagonal dive attack. So it was much harder to just bounce on enemies, but you still could. That, I guess that's true, especially like if people were playing through Hollow Knight in preparation for Silksong, they would definitely create some unfair expectations and probably reawaken some very, very poor muscle memory that did a disservice to them. Where the devs were like I liked how people called it, instead of development hell, they called it development heaven, where the devs were playing the game too much and enjoying the game too much that they forgot to release it. So yeah, and we've seen games like that before. That one game I streamed, Haste, the devs were like, had to nerf a lot of the encounters in the game and the difficulty spikes and everything, because they're like, and they said in the patch notes, like, are bad. The dev team has been playing this game like in development for like 2 years, so we're all cracked at it, and we forgot to we forgot that regular noobs are going to be playing this game. I respect the sequel that says fuck your muscle memory in 1 minute. Honestly, that is really iconic to say, yes, this is a sequel, but it is a new game, and you go learn. I think Dark Souls 2 did that to people. Dark Souls, especially if you played a ton of Dark Souls 1, it probably really set you up for some nonsense once you got into Dark Souls 2. A lot of the fundamentals are there, but I think the executions and like the scaling and stuff is different. I got to give a shout out to H-Bomber Guy here for being Dark Souls 2's strongest soldier. I think, do I need batteries? I need the pink, I think I just have to kill 20 pink propellies. Yeah, I don't actually need their drops. I should probably take them, though, to sell. I've got a lot of junk in my inventory in general I need to sell. Whatever. For real, though, if you ever do get back into hard video game mood, Silksong is really excellent. I think you'd have a fun time with it. Being someone who wasn't crazy about the OG, it's a really great game. I might jump back into it. I actually played The Messenger, a little bit of The Messenger recently, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to have to probably play this on stream. And Rabbit and Steel was hitting that itch for me. Something like really difficult, something grindy, something masterful. So I know that it's only a matter of time before I jump back into Zero Ranger or try to play through Castlevania 1 again. That was a really fun experience, being able to play it on my arcade stick. Actually, I should be using Magic Claw on these. It has a better detection radius. The detection radius for Magic Claw is like more cone shaped. Oh wow, they're actually like stuck. So the quest wants me to kill pink propellies. Okay. So these airplanes are pink propellies. And then the tweeters are the slightly stronger bird type enemies that appear further down. There is a quest, I think, to clear drumming bunnies. To kill like 900,000 of them. Or to get like 300 drums. It's some like ridiculous quest. But there's a hidden map that's only drumming bunnies, and they actually spawn really densely. So I'm gonna just wait. I'm not gonna like prioritize picking up any drums. Gosh, everything's just so tanky. And this is just the way. This is just how Maple is. Wait. Why aren't they letting me pick up those propellers? Oh, God. Have I not been picking up the damn propellers? Wait, no. That's what it was. I turned in the propellers, and I already turned in the quest for the propellers. What the hell? Oh, my hand's on the wrong button on my keyboard. Let me just keep going, because I think that there's a map with pink propellies and tweet. Yeah, this one. These purple birds are the tweeters. Look, it's Rastor. Oh, but speaking of hard games, uh, I've actually been getting really addicted to chess again lately. So I might need to break out the old the chess setup, stream some games. Okay, so I have to kill. I'll just keep grinding whatever I can find. The flying enemies can freely move about the map, but they still kind of spawn based on the different platforms, the different layers of the map. So you still, even though this map is so vertical, you're still sort of forced to rotate. It looks like the propellies are actually kind of aggroing on me, which is interesting. So I'm wondering if I could kind of drag everything down. Another hard game I've had like in my back pocket that I thought that I might want to stream one day is Yggdra Union. It's a Riviera game. So there was this era in like the Game Boy Advance, like PlayStation, like PSP era, where Atlas was making all kinds of like really zany RPGs and strategy games and stuff. Riviera, The Promised Land, Yggdra Union, Nights in the Nightmare, and there was like one or two other ones, and they were just very strange games. They would take a genre and they would add a bunch of really just off the wall. Oh, that's right. I need these eggs for the quest. The small egg. And Riviera, The Promised Land, I'd have to like read an article about it. I'm sure there's like a YouTube video essay because they're all connected somehow. I think they all take place in a shared universe across a timeline of like a few thousand years or something. Riviera, The Promised Land was, I think, a PSP RPG, or maybe it was for the Nintendo DS or something, and they ported it to the PSP. Yggdra Union was a Game Boy Advance game that eventually got ported to the PSP. And the PSP port was actually a also had a balance patch because the game was hard as fuck. Like, I don't remember if you were here for that stream, Ben, when I streamed for a couple days I streamed Advance Wars Days of Ruin. I didn't stick with it, but it was mostly just to kind of talk about how hard the game was. It was just an excuse for me to just remind Chad of how difficult that game was. Like, if you ever played old Advance Wars, it was very like happy-go-lucky. Like, Advance Wars is the Maple Story of tactics games, you know what I mean? Where it's like very all happy, hunky-dory. Yeah, let's beat the bad guys. And then Days of Ruin is like, war is hell. And like, they actually go into like the post-apocalypse. And it's not just you trying to use your little band of mercenaries. You're like protecting survivors and you have to deal with like moral dilemmas and shit. Like, Advance Wars is to Fire Emblem as Days of Ruin is to fucking Tactics Ogre. Like, they were cooking some shit. And notably, Days of Ruin is a notoriously difficult tactics game. The game itself isn't that difficult, but it has a crazy difficulty spike, I think is what it really is. Is like the last half, maybe last third of the game, maybe last 3/7 of the game. It feels like the game starts to really ramp it up on you. I remember just being completely overwhelmed. Once they start giving you the land, air, and sea maps, it gets utterly ridiculous. I'd have to be a real tactics head and get a spreadsheet or something for that damn game. Because I got bodied I played it back when I was, God, I must have only been like a teenager at least. And oh my God. The worst part about it too is that they do the thing where in Advance Wars you get to, you capture buildings on the map, and then those buildings generate resources for you every turn, money every turn, and then you spend that money to build army units, okay? And different units cost different amounts of money, and so you have to figure out your budget versus your tempo versus your matchups, what types of units you're fighting against. But there's a few units that are noob traps, where in Days of Ruin, those units are called Omni tanks. Because it's a storyline thing where it's like this secret weapon that was developed before the apocalypse, and the plans for this Omni tank were like locked away in this vault, essentially this underground government compound. And so, if I'm remembering the story correctly, your faction is looking to get into this underground government compound because it's supposed to have this like underground hydroponic farm system and all kinds of stuff for people to survive. It's basically this bunker, this utopian bunker, where if we can get into this, we have to find all the codes and how to unlock it and all that and get in there. But it also contains the plans for this weapon, this super weapon called the Omni tank. And then once you get to that story beat, the Omni tank becomes available for you to build and use. And Omni tanks fucking suck. They're so expensive. My cat threw up, so I missed the transition to the current topic. I'm sorry. No, I totally get it. That sound that cats make when they're about to throw up, it's like a fire alarm. You just have to get up and run. Tango actually just had a vet appointment recently. She got her teeth cleaned, and they have to put them under anesthesia for that procedure. And some dogs can get really nauseated after the procedure from the anesthesia. I have to kill 18 tweeters. How many eggs? Hang on, sorry. 15. Okay, I need 15 eggs. Anyway, and the other morning I heard the sound. And so I hopped out of bed and I was like, oh no, oh no. But it actually wasn't Tango, it was Gilly. I was like, what the hell, Gilly? What'd you eat? So I don't know. I totally get it. But I was talking about hard games. Because you were saying, when you're getting into hard games, I said, yeah, I'm definitely thinking about maybe streaming The Messenger. I played that recently because it was like on Steam sale. I got it as a gift. Thank you once again to Thurandos, who is very generous, always hooking me up with interesting games he'll think that I'll like. But maybe Castlevania 1, because that was really, really fun to play on my arcade stick. Zero Rangers in my back pocket. I've been getting into chess again lately. This was like the way my brain hops from hard game to hard game to hard game. And chess is a hard game, but I've been really enjoying it lately. Because the last time I got really addicted to chess, I got to like 800 ELO. It was like 800 elo or 850 elo. And then I dropped back down to 800, and I was plateauing a little bit. And I started to get a lot of like ranked anxiety from actually like playing people because I didn't want to lose elo. And I was like, man, you know, it's not feeling good to play anymore. So I kind of just put it down for a bit. And then days became weeks, became months. Same with Mahjong, right? I know the chess puzzles on chess.com are supposed to be really fun now. They've got some really fun ones. The chess puzzles, they have it as like a whole like difficulty run. It's like a solo campaign that you can just do puzzles and then you advance and advance and advance and the puzzles get more intricate. And then the daily puzzles are also they present these really unique or really iconic board states. And it does help with pattern recognition. But I had recently been watching some educational content, learning some openings. I think, well, just kind of relearning my openings. Because I was always playing the Italian for white, and then the King's Indian and the Pircht events for black. And the Pirchts and the King's Indian are very similar. But because you're playing black, you choose one or the other depending on whether or not your opponent does E4 or D4 or whatever. So I've been learning those lines. I found some really good educational content. Chess with Akeem was a new YouTube channel I found that was just kind of has the gameplay and the tactics and everything laid out in a nice way that's entertaining. But anyway, I hit my my personal record. I got to 950 elo like last week. And then I inted a lot. And then I dropped down to like 920, and then I recently climbed back up to like 960 or something. So I'm feeling really good. It's been nice to kind of just get back into chess again. I've definitely been playing too much chess, neglecting some of my other duties. But the main tangent of hard games I was also talking about was Yggdra Union, which is a game I've had in my back pocket for years now. That I'm like, ooh, I should definitely stream this game. I think it would actually be a hoot. Because Yggdra Union, I love the aesthetic of that game. It's so iconic to me. The art style, just the vibes. It's very Ivalice coded. But like not in a Final Fantasy Tactics way. It's Ivalice coded in the Final Fantasy 12 way. I can't really explain it. There's this sort of... It's just that Atlas style. If you remember, I was talking about the Riviera series of games. There was this, during the era of the Atlas, during that time, the Game Boy Advance and like the PSP and stuff, they had this strange renaissance or a movement in their games where they would take a genre and then just really spice it up with some crazy mechanics. And it started with this very oddball RPG called Riviera: The Promised Land. And I don't know too much about Riviera. I never played it. I just remember kind of hearing about it was a really strange avant-garde RPG. I think it had a mechanic of it was a very heavy choices matter RPG where it had like multiple endings, and I think each of your party members had a closeness or affection meter. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've got the eggs and then I cleaned up the tower. I think I'm going to climb all the way down the tower and get all the roly-polies, and then I'll use my Eos scrolls to teleport back up to turn in the quests. But yeah, it started with Riviera: The Promised Land, and this whole like Riviera batch of games, I guess, are all loosely connected. They like all exist within the same universe, but it's spread across a timeline of several thousand years. And it was Riviera: The Promised Land. The ones I remember off the top of my head were Riviera: The Promised Land, Nights in the Nightmare, which was like I think it was a bit of a tower defense bullet hell strategy game. It was very strange. It was like a tactics bullet hell. I bought it because I was like, oh, this is from the same people who made Yggdra Union. I remember that game being really insane. And I'd have to dig around in my old games. I don't know if I still have it. Nights in the Nightmare, Tactics Bullet Hell. Honestly, we've gotta look it up. Hang on a second. Let's take a break here. Nights in the Nightmare. Let me stop right here. It was a PSP title. And the art direction on these fucking games is so good. Like, this era of Atlas is up there with Vanillaware. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of really iconic art, in my opinion. Just honestly, hang on a second. Let me show you this real quick. I have my screen cropped because I'm playing Maple in windowed mode. But just look at this screenshot. Hang on. Arc System Works? Hang on. Open image in new tab. Just look at this screenshot for the game. And tell me what the fuck is going on. This game is incomprehensible. The tutorial where they're actually trying to teach you the game is like 2 hours. I'm dead serious. This is one of those games that I'm dead serious. Like, I tried to play this game and I couldn't make it through the tutorial. It was like not clicking. This is a game that one of the developers must have had a vision. They went on a spirit quest and were blessed with the vision of a game from an alternate dimension. There's only a handful of games like that. I think that Demon Souls is actually from an alternate timeline. I think Nights in the Nightmare is a game that fell through to us from an alternate timeline. These are games that are like so strange in terms of how alien they are with what they're trying to do and just how against the grain they were at the time, right? Demon Souls I honestly, if you're a student of game design and history the way we are, you can draw the ancestry of Demon Souls all the way back to like Ghosts and Goblins and Castlevania, I think. But this game is doing a lot. There's like, hang on. There's even more to this screenshot down at the bottom. I zoomed in too much. Hang on, I gotta resize this window. Like, look, there's even more like stuff at the bottom where I don't even know what this is. There's like extra characters. There's a quest. There's memes about games that have completely ridiculous UI elements. From, you know, back in like the early 2000s, we used to pass around a lot of memes about how bloated and useless a lot of UI elements were on certain games. But this is completely nuts. I gotta see this in motion. This is a game that I think you have to pre-commit that you're going to learn it. This is like a spreadsheet, take it one mechanic at a time type of thing. It's unfortunate because it's a game that the mechanics are so interconnected and layered that you can't, it's not like a normal tactics game or a strategy game where they introduce one mechanic and then you learn that and then they add another one and then you add that to your repertoire and learn that. There's so much upfront stuff you have to master to even functionally navigate the game and play the game, and you have to dedicate yourself to that until it starts clicking. It's like a bit like a fighting game in a way. Oh, it was a DS game? Really? I remember this being on the PSP. It must have been a double port then. One bar represents the side of the moon. The other is how much experience your enemy will give you in correlation to your money, and the other is the amount of merged blood needed to level up. This game is actually so insane. This would be hilarious content if I started a YouTube series learning the most insane and obscure strategy game you've never heard of, and then learn. This game is from another dimension. I swear to God. I swear to you. But Atlus was cooking. In this era, Atlus was, they were fucking chefing it up. They were making some of the weirdest, most avant-garde games you'll ever see. From the video I saw, I think this one might be DS only. I might be thinking of something else. That's so crazy because I remember getting Nights in the Nightmare on PSP. Let me look it up. Yeah, so eventually they ported it. A lot of these games from this era, it's part of the Promised Land series. Sting Entertainment. That's what Sting. Yes. I forgot. Yes, Sting. Where they made Riviera the Promised Land, Yggdra Union. Oh my God, they made Dokapon Kingdom. Say less. But I remember playing Yggdra Union on Game Boy Advance. I'm pretty sure I still have my old Game Boy Advance copy of the game laying around somewhere in my collection. But anywho, yeah, Yggdra Union is the game I was talking about that's really, really hard. And I've kind of had in my back pocket for a long time to probably stream because they ported Yggdra Union to Steam. And I believe the Steam port is the PlayStation, the PSP port, which actually has a rebalance to make it slightly easier and with some quality of life changes. Because Yggdra Union is actually insane. What's really cool about Yggdra Union is that your positioning of your units on the battlefield allow them to chain off of one another and gang up on enemies. Oh God, I fell beneath the portal. Hang on. Let me see if I can replicate that. Oh, interesting. What floor is this? I gotta write this down. This is floor 44th floor. This version is technically an alpha, so I gotta try to just let them know that loading trigger is missized. But Yggdra Union, it's not only is it a difficult game, it's also a guide dang it, which is an old term. There's a lot of hidden interactions and secret characters and hidden quests and stuff that literally you can only stumble across them by accident or know about them ahead of time. There's like a character that you can only get in like the last third of the game if you've hit all of these really specific subquests in like a handful of maps leading up to this one point. And it's shit like you have to bring this character with you for this mission, and then this character on this, it has a day and night cycle. There's a morning, midday, twilight, and night, or like dusk. It's like dawn, midday, dusk, and then night. I think it's a 4-day, a 4-stage day and night cycle. And it's like this character has to be standing on this tile at dusk, and it triggers like this mini cutscene where they encounter a character and have a little like convo with them, and then that character will then be triggered to appear later on in the map, and then you have to interact with them again and schmooze them a bit. And it's like this multi-stage recruitment quest that you have to stumble across by complete accident or look up a guide. It's nonsense. And don't get me wrong. For a game to have something like that is incredibly cool and unique. It reminds me of something like Shin Megami Tensei, where way back in the day, Shin Megami Tensei is known as being a brutally difficult RPG. It deals with a lot of themes, but way back, the earliest versions of this game, I think back when it was a Japan exclusive title, before it was even, localized, they had enemy encounters in the game that were so rare, and they weren't listed in like the official instruction booklet or any sort of official bestiary. So they had these giga rare secret encounters that they were literally urban legends, like back when the game, and you can look this up, this is true. It's a great piece of gaming history. And so if a game like Iggs Reunion, it came out during like the GameFAQs era of, yeah, eventually hyper nerds, and I mean this lovingly, thank you for your service, played through the game back to front and like wrote guides about all the weird hidden little quirky stuff, like really combed through the game. And this was back before we could just, look in the code and the files and stuff and actually just look at it and know where everything was. People were actually just somehow finding this shit. But of course, this all arises from word of mouth. Like, oh, actually, I triggered this cutscene on this one map, or I found this item by this character. And there's like certain items or certain weapons or equipment that you get by having certain characters on your team, and they'll interact with an NPC they encounter, and it'll give you like a really rare item. Stuff like that. It's like, oh my God, this is so in-depth, and there's so much stuff you can miss. There's branching paths. There's one mini campaign in Iggs Reunion. Yo, what's up, Mad Wheels? Welcome in. I'm just doing a short stream today, but I'm just talking about some of the more difficult and esoteric games I've played in my life. Right now, we're talking about Iggs Reunion. Also, have you heard of Nights in the Nightmare, Mad Wheels? It's not the sort of game you would have naturally come across, but it's a game that's infamous for how ridiculously what's the word? Inscrutable it is. And I think I'm gonna have to play it on stream. Because it's been ported to Steam, or I'll just like emulate it. I'll get a DS emulator, or I think I have one set up already from when I was playing Shiren the Wanderer. To get the best sword in the game, sacrifice the ally character you have the highest relationship with in front of your friends to a demon and it's yours. Something like that would actually be kind of dope. Crossman, you're actually cooking. There's a lot of cool stuff like that in the modern era, when I say modern era, I think you know what I mean. Like modern indie era, those sorts of thoughts and ideas are so cool, but it's exactly the sort of weird mechanic that an indie wouldn't put in a game because it's just a lot of extra work for something that's not going to potentially give you a lot of return. But that's where the true sauce is. That's where the recipe comes to life. Where it's like only 10 players are going to choose this option, and those 10 players are going to experience the truest vision. Some stuff is just like really harebrained, where it's like, yeah, you use this item and it has a 1 in 6,000 chance to just instantly kill you. And it's just like, oh, that's very thematic and cool. And then it happens, and it's like, man, the 1 or 2 people that this happens to just suck, huh? They're just naturally unlucky. Modern is now post 2010. Very true. But like I say, Yggdra Union, when did it come out? Yggdra Union came out in like 2004. Like, Yggdra Union is really fucking iconic. I love the art style. When did this come out? $2006? God damn. Oh, they ported it to the Switch. Speaking of Switch, Unicorn Overlord, I remember, was another game that I was like, ooh, I gotta play this. Vanillaware tactics game. Okay, so we're finally down at the bottom of the Eos Tower. I think the bottom of the tower is Omega Sector, which is, there's like an alien base or something down here. But like I say, Yggdra Union was dope. There was a split path as well where there's a mini there's like a mini arc where there's these 2 factions that are fighting, and it's based on the War of the Roses. I also sent you a Discard Dragon list today. I'm contractually obligated to play Discard Dragon if they added it to Worlds Beyond. I gotta jump in and play that for real. I have to climb down just a little bit so that I can turn the quest into the Lost Guard. And thank you for that, Mad Wheels. But anyway, it was like based on the War of the Roses, and you can recruit the leader of one faction, but not the other. You know what I mean? So it's like each playthrough, you can choose one or the other. And it's like, the way the story sets it up, they're 2 warring houses, but their battles are just really, really dangerous and destructive to the landscape and the civilians and stuff that live in their, live in that area. So it's like, we, for the sake of the good of the people, have to bring this battle, this ongoing battle, to an end, right? We have to crush one side so that they stop fighting amongst themselves and destroying all of the world around them. It was definitely a lot for my baby brain back then. You know, I wasn't thinking about the people. I'm thinking about, oh, which of these two, because it's the witches versus the necromancers, I think it is. It's like the two quests. And it's like really cool because like witches give you magic in like the weapon triangle, which I think gives you like a slight advantage in more encounters. And the necromancers give you access to certain unique spells, and they get a boost at night because the game is, like I said, has a day-night cycle. So you would have like this unit that was insane during the night, and certain missions would be like, it would be locked in to be permanent nighttime. And so you do stuff like that. Oh wait, I'm an idiot. I already turned in the quest to that lost soldier. I need to go back home. There we go. Nice. Now he wants us to clear block golems, which are way down at the bottom. Very, very easy to farm. There's a map that has just all block golems. And then we talk to Manager Carl, who is inside the toy factory. Wand production manual. This is an item you'll need to have if you want to make an item through Rydal somewhere around Ludibrium. Please choose what kind of item you wish to have. We'll take a staff production manual. Interesting. Rydal. That name does ring a bell. I think he's over here. Rydal. I feel like he's in one of these shops. This is just empty house. There's nothing in here? Really? Hang on. Is this a debate? There's like another ladder up here. Does this lead anywhere? Let's see. I feel like I've seen that NBC before. Rydal. Actually, I think Rydal is in the main hub. Lightning earrings. Oh, awesome. I already have rat traps from earlier quests. Ooh, I get a hat. The blue jester hat's just so iconic, though. Is it better than what I have? This one gives extra luck. No, I've just got the intelligence hat for damage. And these aren't better than leaf earrings. So we're still good. And so I think I thought I got the Junior Pepe's fishes already. What? Oh, yeah, I see. I got the fishes, gave them to Moppy, and then if I return to Huckle, he has another quest for me. Because when I gave the fish to Moppy, he gave me, like, some mesos and pet food. Let me see if I can find Rydell. So I can kind of get an idea of what ingredients I'll need to actually make a staff. I'll just look it up. I can't. He's like a clockwork guy, like a little Lego guy. I think he's a kind of like a fancy pants looking. Oh, no. He's like a smith. He's in the toy factory. The toy factory. Interesting. Yeah, let's go have a look. So I can see what sorts of items I would need. Also, Apocalypse Pack is the first world beyond set with all original characters. The game is finally hitting its stride and becoming its own thing and not just Shadowverse 2. Your character looks like a jester? Yeah, we got the jester hat. Mages actually get some pretty silly looking equipment during the Civil Range, but it's iconic in its own way. In terms of cool factor, I think warriors and thieves get the best gear. Yo, what's up, Zabanes? Welcome. Just doing a short early stream today. We've been talking about all kinds of crazy games. I don't know if you've heard of Knights in the Nightmare, but I was threatening to maybe play that game on stream just because it's so hilariously incomprehensible that it could be funny to watch me try to learn it. Wait, what the hell? Oh, I'm stupid. I have to go down one. I have to go down. This is the Sky Terrace. I have to go down one more set of floors to get to the toy factory. I think there is a quest to like kill like 6,000 of these little duckling things. So we'll spend some time in here eventually, I imagine. I also have to remember to go and empty all the junk out of my inventory at the store. Talk to an NPC and sell some stuff out of my inventory. Because Ludibrium is kind of like Victoria Island 2, where there's quest lines to basically kill hundreds of pretty much every single enemy type. But they do a better job of making the maps that are concentrated around these enemies closer together. You've been threatening to play mini games. We're all on I'll believe it when I see it at this point. I know. I just have so many ideas, and like being a variety streamer is just hilarious because I'm just so fickle. You know what I mean? It's like if I can get a good streak of streams, then I can put a good dent in a lot of games. But if I ever have to take a break or like miss any streams because I have to go for work or something like I'm doing this weekend, then I just sort of lose all momentum. Then don't miss streams. Ain't that right? All right. You're looking strong. Do you want a weapon? All right. So I want to create a one-handed weapon. What is a stimulator? It's a mysterious potion. How do I get stimulators? right, so if I want a ordinary one-handed weapon, that would be a staff. I think no one tells Skarsgård about Monday, Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. Heidi's actually changing her schedule at work, I think, soon. So I might change my stream schedule so we have more days off together. So the stream schedule might definitely be changing. Let me look up. I wish they had a thing where you could, like, see the stats. Oh, God. Hang on. I think the arc staff is available in the shop in Ludi. I think it's like a level 35 staff. The wizard staff. Okay. Let me pull this up. I want an ordinary one-handed weapon staff. Okay, the wizard staff is a level 25 staff. The arc staff is a level 45 staff. And then the thorns is a level 55 staff. I currently have the circle wind staff, which is level 30. And I think the hall staff is the one that's for sale in the store. So I could get the arc staff. It's hard to say because I can also just LPQ. I do want damage. I need to upgrade my staff for real. So it's probably the best middle ground for me to just get the arc staff. So that's 8 steel plates. Oh my god. 5 amethysts. 5 topaz. 5 sapphires. And 30 screws. Okay. Screws are easy to get because you just exchange steel and bronze ore to make screws. You can get steel plates from Iron Hog's hoof. And then 5... Oh my god. How many amethysts do I even have? This is topaz. I don't even have enough for 1. Dear lord, that's a lot of mats. I feel like if I were grinding to get the materials for the staff, I probably would get to level 45. This is why I can't do variety. I'm a very focused person. Variety would be a 1 day a week thing for the sake of audience boredom. That's usually how a lot of people do it. You have your main game, and then you have like a variety game or a game on the side. Even creators like, you know, off the top of my head, right? Like Markiplier plays a lot of variety games for his channel, but still kind of had his main lane of horror games. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, you've got your main line. And it's kind of cool, right? Where TCGs bleed into strategy games, bleed into roguelikes. And so that is generally my main lane. And then there's like a lot of other stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is kind of cool. I'd like to play that. I just have to get better at looking at maybe howlongtobeat.com. That gives rough estimates about how long it would take to beat a game. And just try to play maybe some shorter stuff. Because we've played some really cool short games on stream. Like Gato Roboto, I have fond memories of. Just a really, really tight mini Metroidvania. Yeah. And now that I've done all of those quest lines, we're getting more and more quests here in Ludi. collect cursed dolls. Oh god. And sometimes it's just a matter of, yeah, this is a variety stream. I just want to play this really iconic, nostalgic game that I was just in the mood for. Like when we played through Lost Kingdoms on stream. Or the fact that I've been spamming MapleStory is a bit of a variety thing. But I also made a couple YouTube videos already for MapleStory. So I'm at least trying to branch out a little bit there, revive the old content Zig. He's still in there somewhere. Oh my god, the staff production manual takes an etc. slot. Cringe. Stream 4 days a week. Day 1 TCG, day 2 strategy, day 3 roguelike, day 4 variety. I know it's horrible, but if he wants to hit all the cylinders, that's how he would do it. Back when I was like burning the candle at both ends and I was doing like max content, that was back when I was Duelist was my main game, and I would stream 3 days a week, and then I would stream, do a YouTube video, then stream, do a YouTube video, then stream. And I think I was taking weekends off back then. Because with the way it lined up with my work schedule, I also had weekends off of my day job. And so it kind of just lined up where I would work really, really hard during the week and then, you know, try to recover on Saturday and Sunday. But it was a lot, for sure. And now that I've been like making YouTube thumbnails for PokeAim's channel for so long, you know, that's really what takes up a lot of my downtime is doing art. Like when I'm in between streams, that time that I would in the past, in the long ago in the past, where I'd be using to edit YouTube videos and make my own content, I've just been kind of doing freelance art instead, which is fine, right? I've made more money doing thumbnails than I ever had from any of the YouTube videos I've ever made. That's literally what you're supposed to do, though. I know. I just really fell off the wagon for a bit. But like I said, with MapleStory, all of the yapping and topics that I've been discussing regarding MapleStory Classic World, a lot of the discussion topics that I had over the course of like Legends of Runeterra, I was really leaving content on the table there. Either just compiling my thoughts into a script and kind of posting about it, because that's what sort of Sunny ended up outflanking me on doing. And he's got way better video editing skills than me. But he was making a lot of stuff and making a lot of the same points that I was always talking about regarding Runeterra's design and their meta and their balance back in the day, right? And even that video that I made where I cut where I spent the entire stream talking about Cyberpunk TCG, and I cut that down, even that video got way more views than I was expecting. Skarzig has literally made himself a background character. Yeah, your pet like stands in front of your name. I am Skasnail. But Cyberpunk TCG, by the way, the Kickstarter just dropped, and they already have millions of dollars of funding. So we knew that they were going to be funded immediately. The Kickstarter, just to reiterate, is for the sake of them being able to gauge interest, but also to ensure that their first wave of product release goes directly to players that want cards. It's not just going to release out into the wild and get scooped up by scalpers. So if you want to do Cyberpunk TCG, then the Kickstarter is a way to get guaranteed like booster boxes and stuff as soon as the game comes out. And they're hitting stretch goals where now you're getting even more rewards now for your backing tiers. No, I mean, you've made yourself a background character as a content creator. Kinda, yeah. I think scalpers are banned. Thinking scalpers are banned for using Kickstarter. I mean, yeah, you can back at the whatever tier to get like a few booster boxes, and there's going to be people reselling those Kickstarter rewards. But I just mean to say that as long as you back the Kickstarter, the scalpers can't keep you from getting product. It's one thing for players to for people to resell collectible items at an increased price. It becomes a problem when they're buying up the entire market and then reselling it at that inflated price, and they've monopolized and cornered the market, which has happened with every TCG essentially, and especially Pokemon in this era. Yeah, it got funded in like a few hours. Literally, I saw somebody post that they hit their funding goal, and I was like, wait, the Kickstarter dropped? And I realized that the email notification I got when the Kickstarter campaign launched went to my junk folder, so I just forgot about the launch. But yeah, it got funded right away. But even in Runeterra, I made a few videos talking about design. I had one, I remember, where we had that discussion where we were talking about reworking Karma because she's always super toxic and problematic in the late game whenever she becomes good. And I had a few design discussions around Fizz. I remember I made a video about how Fizz was like really bad for the game. And I remember when they did the first rotation, there was a lot of cards that should have rotated but did not. And I made a video about that. And it was just the sort of content for Runeterra that people just didn't really care about it. My channel is really small, don't get me wrong. But even when I was consistently right with everything regarding Runeterra's balance and design, I never got any fucking credit anyway, so there really was no point for me to make videos. And that's kind of how it is in card games, where there's like the bigger content creators, and not only their deck lists trickle down, but their opinions also trickle down. They fixed Karma all right by creating a counter so powerful she was literally worthless versus Poros. So why play Karma? For Karma, Fizz was fine. It's literally just a Snapcaster mage. Fizz wasn't fine because you had to like interaction check your opponent over and over again, and you would lose by trying to remove the Fizz. And so you were just forked constantly by taking 2 damage over and over again for free versus being able to remove the Fizz. It's because you were wrong about Aloof Travelers and discredited your entire streak. No, Aloof Travelers got nerfed. And Mare got nerfed. Like I say, Aloof Travelers was mostly toxic because it wasn't Bandle. If it was a P&Z only card, you could maybe excuse the sin, but it was way too much for Bandle to have that card. And also have the ability to generate random extra copies of that card. Aloof Travelers would have been better if it was a simultaneous effect where you would discard from yourself as well as your opponent, because the draw was simultaneous. You would draw the card and your opponent would, and then your opponent would discard. And it would be a way to say, I'm sacrificing my late game in order to hinder your late game, and I'm doubling down on the early mid game. You know what I mean? And you would have to, when you're more wrong than right, if being wrong or right is proven by Riot making changes, then you're more wrong than right. That, well, I mean, that's just moving the goalposts. Is Fizz broken? In theory, yes, but AoE existed. You have to remember as well that a lot of the quote-unquote good AoE was very slow or didn't wipe the whole board anyway. I suppose, yeah, if you're trying to play Fizz into like Freljord back when they had Blighted Ravine and all of that stuff, yeah, Fizz is totally fine, but in a format without AoE removal, he was very toxic. And you got to remember as well, in the context of rotation, Fizz became even more ridiculous. And they specifically said they kept Fizz in because they just wanted to facilitate that playstyle, which was not... It's like, if we remove Fizz, then Bilgewater loses its like spell slinging playstyle, and because Bilgewater didn't have anything to replace that playstyle, they decided to, rather than give them less tools, they decided to leave in the toxic aspect of the region. And that's not the right way to approach a problem like that. We got to leave in this bad thing just so that the people who want to use other parts of Bilgewater still have more stuff to use. You know what I mean? You're leaving bad stuff in just to keep more things in. And it's like, just make more things or buff the bad things to replace those. But, you know, this is all... in this particular case, is not a hindsight is 2020 thing, because everybody really disliked Fizz. Or even talking about Fizz with fucking, what was it called? The burst spell that would make him a 4/4 so you could survive removal, or AoE. Really toxic. The TF Fizz matchup. But I mean, the devs being stubborn and not changing things that are obviously very bad for the game doesn't mean I was wrong. Like, Aurelia Azir is the perfect example of the devs being just incredibly stubborn, incredibly obtuse, willfully misinterpreting their own data in order to keep a really, really degenerate deck in the game. And that right there is basically like QED for me. I remember, because I was crashing out so hard in the Aurelia Azir era because I was literally going insane. It felt like I was talking to people who did not play the game. Like, you cannot play the game. You cannot play with or against this deck in any serious capacity and try to pretend that this is balanced. It was crazy talk to me. I was like, this is absolutely insane. That's when I knew. That's when I really gave up on trying to have serious discussions with card game players, and I had to internalize that they are not designers. Players are not designers. They have no concept of what makes a good and balanced environment for a competitive game. Just absolutely ridiculous takes. There was like, and I was just like, remember the people who are going to bat for Aurelia Azir so that we can tell them that your opinions are invalid on any sort of balancing or discussion about this game going forward. Like, literally, it's an invalidating opinion. I was so furious. With Fiora, I could understand, like, the debate about Fiora. But for Aurelia Azir, there was no excuse. And I mean, I was obviously right regarding Atrocity, which I called Frame 1. And like I say, they would just leave these really toxic things in the game forever and just hope that we got used to them. And I guess in a way we sort of did. But eventually, they became too much of an issue to design around and to handle. The discussion about Viego just proved to me people wanted OP shit to win with sleight of hand. The overall design trends of Runeterra really indicated to me that pivoting to a single player campaign was really what people wanted all along. The idea of Runeterra being this back and forth competitive game, you know, where you're trading actions back and forth, you're banking mana, you're trying to bait your opponent, you're trying to set up this, that, and the other, was cool as it was presented on the surface, but deep, deep down, the player base didn't actually want that at all. People hated being locked in and paying attention to the game. They despised caring about what their opponent was doing on their turn. They wanted to just do the same Hearthstone brain off. I take my turn, watch YouTube shorts on my phone, come back, and then take my turn again. And so for the design and themes of Runeterra, it absolutely was much better presented and preserved as the current mode, the single player mode, Path of Champions, is just a much better vehicle for the stuff that's in the game and what they want to add to the game and what players want to do inside the game. Yeah, I agree. No thought, stop WinCon. I talked about Deny at length, specifically the Ionia problem of Runeterra, and that's why it would always bottleneck eventually to an Ionia deck, because they had so many cards that freely responded to so many win conditions. Other regions had to, you know, make concessions, or I can beat this win condition, but I'm weak to this win condition. And having bounce-based win like responses and denial responses like that just automatically gives you insulation versus other win cons in the game, which is one of the reasons that Demacia Shurima was such an insane deck for a long time, because typically with a mid-range deck, if you survived their really strong stats through the early mid game, you can run them out of resources. Eventually you get to a big win condition or a big finisher and you take them down, but they have Rite of Negation, which insulates them from auto losing in the late game. And Demacia Shurima, especially with Akshan, it gave them this additional resource generation to keep going. And don't get me wrong, as I said, I love grindy, mid-rangey decks. Stuff like Scion, Grey Legion, fantastic. But you got to remember as well, Demacia Shurima was also rally slop. Every TCG player, even the ones who liked back and forth, want to ignore their opponent, if we're honest. I know what you mean. Deny should only target 6+ cost spells. I think it should have been something like that, where Deny needed to be gated to spells of a certain expense. The issue with Deny is that you're always using it mostly around 6+ cost spells as its primary use. But the fact that you could use it in a pinch to deny, you know, like a 5 cost spell like Concerted Strike was really huge too. Um, I definitely get it. I definitely get it. They're like a lot of competitive games, TCGs, you want to run your game, and if your opponent can't stop what you're doing, then it just sucks to be them. But you can't design around that environment, because when your game becomes overly centralized around these non-interactive zero-sum matchups, players lose agency. But anyway, I've yapped a little bit too long. I do need to go, because Heidi and I are going to go catch a nice meal. I posted in the Discord server. She just got off of a really long stretch of super duper stressful shifts at her job. And I'm going to be leaving town tomorrow morning for the Houston Regional. So we're going to go out on a nice little date night. It's your job to stop me, not my job to interact. But what if my thing is stronger than your thing, and you can't stop my thing? And then we're both just doing things that can't be stopped, right? And so when you're playing a game against another opponent, against your opponent, and you both don't care about your opponent, then like there's no point there. In terms of pure competition, sure. But in terms of this is a game, right? This is an activity that you have chosen to participate in with another person. It kind of goes against the spirit. And it's not a healthy long-term area to be designing within. Sometimes you're on the other side. I get it. Like, you aren't always going to be able to stop your opponent every single game, right? Even if the matchup is good for you, you might just draw like trash and you lose. But I mean, in a macro sense, you know what I mean? We're talking how it's like, oh, Viego's tier 1, so I have to run brain dead burn aggro to just maul them before they have a chance to get to their win condition. And so it's like, that's what I mean. And Runeterra always ended up like that, in this really stretched out binary meta of both decks really not caring about what their opponent is doing, but just in different flavors. Because Viego doesn't care what you're doing, because eventually they're going to get to like 7 mana or whatever and just start killing you. And whatever you're doing in the early mid game, they don't care about at all, because you're still just trading into them. You still have fearsome pressure. You still have just good Shadow Isles removal. So you really don't care what they're doing. You're just getting to your win condition and chilling. And there's no finesse there with Viego. You know what I mean? I think that's pretty much what it was. Is that a lot of the really strong decks in the game didn't have finesse. It was, I win on this breakpoint, and it's all up to my opponent to stop me. And that's honestly one of the reasons I really liked Heimer Jace, was that the win con actually was finesse and based really heavily around value and tempo. And that deck was good for, when we consider like how long Pirates was good for, I think Heimer Jace probably is the close runner-up as the other immovable object of the overall metagame. That's ladder. Tournaments are different. Truly, lots of Runeterra decks were too easy to play. I agree there. Anything that was very difficult or complex to play usually was gimmicky and required too much setup. Think like Malphite Talia, a deck that was obviously very, very strong, and Grandpa Roji demonstrated that with the right knowledge and the correct build, you can pilot this deck to new heights. But it was a lot of jumping through hoops and setup to just get parity with other decks that were just jamming. John and Neela, I do have to respect as having a lot of finesse. And Lurk, to just bring it all full circle, because we always talk about Lurk, that was a deck that also had a lot of finesse, but it had its power floor was way too high. The minimum power you got from just mindlessly playing the deck was too good, versus the ability to really squeeze out wins in matchups or board states where you aren't supposed to win. And also, Blood in the Water should never been printed. I do agree with that. That's the one Lurk point that I 100% concede. But anyway, I am going to go. And I'll see y'all next week. Peace.